like that. Since she talked about it too, where she talked about how her relationship got better with her mother after therapy, right? And I think like that was already a hard thing too. So my stipulation to her was, hey, by in February, I need you to try therapy, right? Because whatever I'm saying is not getting to you, and we're at a point where we're going to split. She goes, well, I want to do couples therapy first. I was like, no, we're not doing that. You need to try therapy first on your own because you need to trust the process. If you don't trust the process, therapy doesn't work. If you think that you know better than the person who's trying to advise you. So try it on your own. Have your own experience with it, and then we'll go to couples counseling. And so I gave her an ultimatum. I was like, if you want me to try again, then the one thing I need you to do is find a therapist in February. By the end of February, if you don't have a therapist or you haven't tried, by March 1st, there's going to be movers moving my stuff out. So that's just what it is. And so she tried it. She loved her therapist, unlocked all this shit.
Some people, just by virtue.
Oh, baby, listen, I love this opening scene. I'm on Shamboody's podcast, so let me tell you something. She be putting out the great work. I ain't gonna lie to you, Shanboody be doing the Lord's work in terms of healing people, by the way, guys. But he just gave her a mouthful. He said, basically, he told his girl at the time, basically the woman that he was with is, his fiance at the time, and he said, listen, if you don't get therapy, we done. You're done. We done. And you're out of here. And so it's such a beautiful story. I haven't listened to all of it, but I'm going to, we're going to dive into it here as well and just kind of break some stuff down. But I really do love what I heard, not only from himself, but Shanboody as well, in terms of her breaking down some stuff for him. But it's the kind of stuff that we like to hear, because I think when we're talking about healthy relationships, bringing a healthy dynamic, we want to see great conversations like this, because it helps people understand there are tools to help us get to that next step. Don't suffer in your ignorance, and don't stay in your ignorance, because it can cost you a relationship. I also like this as well, because I think often the narrative is that men are buffoons, men are idiots, men often are ones that are a problem, men are usually the ones that are causing issues. But I always say this, when you start talking to healthy men, they're the ones also encountering unhealthy women, the same way that healthy women tend to encounter unhealthy men. And so it's a common phenomenon that bad boys meet good girls, good guys meet bad girls. It just is what it is, So I love this as well. So we're gonna dive into it, get into a conversation about it. But if you're new to the channel, do me a massive favor: like it, share, subscribe, click on that bell button for notification of the uploads. We appreciate you guys. Stay locked and stay loaded. And for those of you who are returnees, you already know what it is, baby. You got the minerals. Let's get into the video. I'm gonna go scoot back to the beginning of the conversation. Let's dive in.
Relationship, right? So a healthy one, let's say. So there's David, and then here's your wife, Mario, and then I've got Daryl in the middle, which is the place that the two of you meet, whether that be shared friends, shared interest, shared time together, shared babies, puppies, whatever. So with that to be said, how would you draw your circles?
Now, this is a very interesting question, right? So now it's like that for us.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's about 10% shared circle.
Yes. So it was probably even a lot smaller before.
Less than this.
It was less than that.
So you've graduated to 10.
So when she and I first got together, we lived very, very separate lives, right? So she lived all the way on the west side. I lived towards like Pasadena. So,
and let's be clear, we're not talking about America.
Yes, we're talking about in the
Los
same
Angeles.
city. Okay. But traffic-wise, it's an hour and a half drive. But within that week,
within rush hour only.
Yes.
Any other time, it's 40.
Other than that, I told her, get the fuck out of my face. No, but we would see each other maybe at most once a week, and it was like that for about 4 years. And I think that's why we worked so well, right? Because she always had her separate life. I had my separate life. She had.
Wow. First and foremost, let me just say this: once a week. For 4 years, I couldn't do that. I'll be honest with you, I couldn't do that. Yeah, I couldn't do that. I'm going to be honest with you. Once every 4 weeks. Do you know what? Okay, so this is the only part of the video I actually watched. When he began to describe what's happening, I saw myself in him, and I said, that's trauma-informed. Oh, man, that feels a little bit trauma-informed. I'll be honest with you. I can say it myself. I love my independence, but part of my independence is trauma informed. I'm so used to being independent, so used to being on my own. In fact, I just recorded a few videos about this as well. So used to having to self-emote, that, I can understand I could be very independent. So, once every week for the next 4 years, That's on average, I'm guessing as well. I'll be honest with you, I couldn't personally do that myself. As independent as I am, that would be too little for me. Actually, no, saying that, I tell lies. I could do it. No, I could. Maybe not for 4 years though, but I definitely could have done it. Because I did do it for a short while. Once I could do it, and just kept to the conversations. Because I'm so focused on my work, I can see myself doing it. I tell lies. Yeah, I can. Right? I'm so used to being on my work. I do it now. Sometimes I'm just so focused on my work. I don't want people to call me, message me, WhatsApp me, DM me. I'll be ignoring people's messages because I just want to focus on my work, and it takes a lot of energy to do what I'm doing. And also as well, sometimes I just want to think, and there's just too much noise outside that just drives my brain insane. So I think sometimes that's for me, but I know that's trauma informed. So, I did say to myself in 2023, when I come back from Ghana, I'm definitely going to do some therapy, because I think it's the last part, it's the last part of, I think, the growth that I needed, that aspect. So for me, I think I'm definitely going to take that up, because I think there's something wrong there. I'll be honest with you. It's as much as it sounds great. Yeah, I'm an independent person. You're not. Okay, you're not. Okay, a lot of us are broken. Let's just keep it a buck. A lot of us are broken, and our independence is as a result of our childhoods, and oftentimes our emotional needs not being met, and we've grown to be independent. So much so, we're almost someone described it as being hyper independent. I don't need nobody. But the reality is you do, right? And so for me personally, I'm saying this as well. So, but I wonder if that's part of his story as well. But, that could be another story. We'll let him play and see what's going on.
She had her friends, I had my friends, and our friends are vastly different. They're two separate worlds. I grew up in Sacramento, California, the south side of Sacramento. She grew up in Los Angeles, in a very Asian predominant area. That she grew up with academics. They all went to, private schools, or they went to very universities, right? My friends were half and half. And so I didn't really want to mingle our friends together because it would just be a weird thing, right? And I never really did that in the first place. I always liked being with somebody who had their own life and my own life, because it always made it more fun when we got together. One of the biggest things that I had before I decided to get into a serious relationship again was that she would not work in the same industry as me.
I want to pause this, yeah? So he's saying something so... He's saying something so key, like that I would say as well myself. I honestly, for me, I'm agreeing. I'm with him. This is why I know that something there, bro. Because I'm like, I don't like mingling friends. Like, yo, you got your friends, I got my friends. One or two friends can meet, but let's not be merging all our friendships together. Okay, all right. We don't have to merge our whole friendship situation together. You got your friends, I got my friends. Live your life with your friends. I live my life with my friends. And we have our life together. I see it as that's part of my compartmentalization. This is me and you. We're in the middle. I have my friends in the corner. You have your friends in the corner. And sometimes, our friends can intermingle, but let's not do too much. Okay. You're sprinkling a little bit too much on it together. Don't do it too much together. You know what I mean? We don't need to bring it all together. I don't like that personally. But that's because I don't like, I like to have separate friends for separate things. Do you know what I'm saying? Like in my head, how it looks to me is I compartmentalize people. I have friends that I go out with. I have friends, that I know are good for business. I know I have friends that are good for this. And I don't like to intermingle our friendship groups. But that's me compartmentalizing. And me.
Because number one, I think as artists, we're a lot more sensitive. And so, for example, like if I do a video, I don't ever show her my videos, because if she does something and she goes, "It wasn't that funny," I'm like, "Oh, well, let's take it outside then." Huh?
Yeah.
So now it's like, okay, I made sure that she had a separate, because number one, it just made things more exciting. I got to learn more about her, and we didn't have to share all of our goals together, right? We have shared goals, but then she has her own separate stuff. And so when we would meet together, we just had so much more to talk about. And I think for my first
What
relationship,
does Mariel do for a living?
she works in animation. So on the production side, right? So currently now she works more in tech in terms with things with animation, but that's just what she does. And her personal journey to get to that was pretty insane too. So for me,
and you're a comedian, podcaster,
actor, do all this other stuff, and I think for her, filmmaker, you know, whatever. So for my very first relationship, I was the hyper codependent person, right? To the point where I only value myself as a person if that person.
Do you know what's really interesting? I may be projecting a little bit into this. I may be projecting, and I like saying that of late because I think it's always key to alert the audience that you may be reading something into it by yourself. I don't know if anybody noticed how when he described what he was, he did it really quickly, and then when she added on filmmaker, he said, yeah. Not that he was dismissing her, but rather, I don't know if he celebrates himself too tough. This is me reading into it. This is me reading into it, by the way. So it's not necessarily, can say 100%. But I wonder how comfortable he is with celebrating himself, because when he was talking about his what he is, as soon as she added filmmaker, he kind of did yeah. Yeah, I don't want to boast too much. Like he's not you know what I mean? Like it's not even a boast really. It's more of a case of the person saying you wear several hats, you know. But it's the way he dismissed it really quickly. I wonder how comfortable he is with being able to celebrate his successes and achievements as well. But this is something that's just there, you know.
And found me valuable, right? It was the worst thing that I did, and I didn't realize that I was doing this until after we broke up.
Hold on.
If that person found me valuable.
What did you just say there? I think that's really powerful. Sorry, I
so for me,
apologies.
And you're a comedian, podcaster,
actor, do all this other stuff, and I think for her, filmmaker, you know, whatever. So for my very first relationship, I was the hyper codependent person, right? To the point where I only value myself as a person if that person found me valuable, right? It was the worst thing that I did, and I didn't realize that I was doing this until after we broke up. So for example, if she thought I was a good person, I was a good person. If she thought I was a bad person, I was a bad person. So the moment that she and I broke up, and I was 18 years old, I was very young, because my value was tethered to this person, when she was gone, I therefore lost value. I didn't value myself. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know who I was. And I just had this moment in my life where I realized, like, oh, you're a little too dependent on other people to find value in yourself. And so from that.
Man, this is so real. This is so real. I told you something. At 18, he's saying what I was feeling at 18. Right? Because, you know, as a man specifically, I want to say this, just like for women too, they have their what society tells them is valuable. As a man, your value is based upon what you've achieved, what you've done, and what you have. So like if you're looking at your life, that's why I said to you that at a point in time when I was young, relationships I was finding myself in, I realized also, like he said, my value was attached to those relationships, because really and truly, if I really deep it, what else did I have? I mean, and then if it wasn't a relationship, I would try to find some value in a job. Now, at a point in time, I was working in McDonald's. I worked in McDonald's for 6 years, guys. I just want to let you guys know, I flipped burgers for 6 years. And I remember, I don't know if I've told you guys the story before. I was so embarrassed because I'd finished university. I got a degree in business studies, but I was still working in McDonald's for another 2 years after university. Couldn't find a proper job. And my value and how I felt about myself was really dipping. And actually, that's what actually turned me to God. I'll be honest with you. I told you guys before. That's what really turned me to God. And by the grace of God, he changed my mindset and a lot of things. But that was what turned me to God. I said, God, I mean, I've got a degree. You know, people are putting pressure on me. They expect better than me. But I'm working in McDonald's, bro. I'm 21, 22 now, working in McDonald's. How can I imagine talking to a woman at 22, 23 and telling her I work in McDonald's. Okay? Imagine telling someone, and I did tell someone, and I lied about it. I remember I was talking to one woman. This is when I was 21, and I was talking to a girl. I approached her on the street. We started talking, vibing, catching jokes, and I told her I was a blogger. I was prophesying. I didn't relax, but I told her I was a blogger. I was a blogger at the time, but I never got paid for it. And it's not like my blog was crazy. I used to write my blogs, but I never wanted to tell her I worked at McDonald's because I was so embarrassed. At that point, 21, going 22, I'm embarrassed. Why am I still working at McDonald's? Do you understand? So, you know, at that point, I'm attaching my value to my job. So maybe not, I'd finished my relationship. I was now single. You know, I'm now on the prowl, if you want to call it that. And now I'm looking at McDonald's and going, How can man chat to gal and talk to gal and be excited to talk to gal when man have got nothing to offer gal? Man gonna offer burgers and that. What, discount card with McDonald's? I was embarrassed. So I lied. Or I said, yes, I lied because I admitted information at that moment by just saying I'm a blogger. She didn't believe me though. And I showed her the blog and she read it. She's like, no, that's not yours. That's when I knew I was sick. When she read it and she didn't believe it was mine, I said, yeah, that's me still. That's when I realized how sick I was. But at the same time, it wasn't my job. My job was I worked at McDonald's. That's how I get money. Okay? All right? So, whew, baby, it's not a joke. Okay? Yeah. That was so sad, right? So value. And I remember when I got my first kind of career job, I worked in a bank, Barclays, at the point in time. Shout out to Barclays for giving me a job. The excitement I felt, and by the way, my salary was way below, even average salary. I think I was on 14,000 a year. But from where I was, I had times 7 my salary, okay, per year. Okay, because on average I was getting like 2-3 grand a year. I was double it times 7, working at Barclays. So you can imagine now the difference I have. I'm feeling better about myself, but I realize still it's not enough because my value is attached to the job. Now, let's be honest and let's be real. Your value is going to be based from an external source. There's no. I honestly don't believe there's anything such thing as I hold value completely from within. There's no such thing because nobody's born and then is never influenced by things that happen to them outside of themselves. My value that I attach to myself, first and foremost, is that I'm a Christian, and my value is that I'm a son of God. Therefore, I have a certain standard and value myself. But then I do attach some type of value to the things that I do. Number one being my purpose. What has God called me for? What is my calling? Sorry. My purpose is that I give my life to Christ. I worship him. But my calling is the ability to use my gifts and my talents to bring about 2 things. Number one, the kingdom of God in terms of reconciliation to God. But the second thing also too is part of me is an entertainer. It's entertain. It's to produce a body of work that will heal and bring light to people. And so that also gives me a value. Do you know what I'm saying? In that aspect. So, but this is a great point he's made there. Absolutely beautiful point. But what he made was about how his value was in the sense of, if you thought I was good, I was good. If you thought I was amazing, I was amazing. And a lot of us grow up that way because of the kind of households we've grown up in. It's very performative. I can almost guarantee if he starts telling us about his childhood, we're going to see that he's been performing for a very long time, and that his value is based upon how do you perform, and based on critique by the audience to his value, which is what he describes in the sense of, if you tell me I'm good, because he's performing, not necessarily that he's trying to perform, but rather in the sense of that, you've been performing since a kid, and that your value in some sense is attached to how people see you. So I definitely understand where he's coming from, but it's real. I love that point he made.
Point on.
Did you need her to need you in order to feel valued?
100%.
What specific ways did you want her to need you?
I just wanted to be next to her at all times. And I didn't even want even other people to be a part of her life the way that I was, right? And it was just this very bad value. She was also my best friend. So it's like everything that I drew, if anything positive was from her. Right. And then from that point on, I was like, oh, maybe I need to kind of go ahead and just work on myself and learn how to be dependent on my own shit. So at that point, I kind of started to realize, okay, and this kind of goes into this other thing where I went too far left and then I went too far right. Right.
Yeah.
I had a previous relationship before Mariel that I was so dependent that I didn't let this person feel valued in the relationship, because she felt that whether she came and went, it didn't matter. Right. So
yes.
Because I was so damaged here, I went too far here.
So it's like the Goldilocks.
Bro, listen. Oh, this guy's speaking my... Whoo, baby, I've not watched this part, so he's speaking literally what has happened to me. It's like he's talking to me right now. My God. Oh, yeah. I hear what you're saying. So at this point in time, what he's describing here is, and you guys hear me say this a lot of times, how the pendulum swings when you're literally trying to get to a place where you're finding the middle ground. It's so difficult because if you've never been on the other side of things, you can go too far, or you can go too far the other side. You go to extremes, and it's part of a lot of us is a part of the learning experience and the growth. And he's explaining something. So after my first relationship, like I said, I was in very much the person like him who wanted to be needed. I needed to be a savior. I wanted to be and like him as well. My first girl, I had been friends with her for years before I became her boyfriend. So I'd seen her in all different lights and stuff, and I just wanted her to need me. And I wanted to, when I was looking at a relationship, I look back on it, I realized there was a lot of power struggles there too. We can talk about another day. But I definitely wanted to be needed. I definitely wanted to see me in that light where I can, help her, save her. And I remember one time we had this conversation. I remember this time because we were sitting on a hill. I remember this. We were sitting on some hill. And we were talking at night, and the moon was coming, and I remember watching this. We're sitting on the moon, underneath the moon, and we're talking, because when you're young at 16, or 17, 18, you'd be out and about on a madness. I remember it was nighttime, late in the night, and we're sitting underneath the moon, and I remember I asked her, "Raw, like, out of this relationship, what have you learned from me?" And she paused, and I remember, to be fair, we weren't in a good place, so I can understand, but she was like, I don't know. And I remember in my brain, I was like, wait, what? So you've been with me for how long? You ain't learned nothing from me, really. And I was so hurt by that. And the reason why I was so hurt by that is because your value in some sense was placed upon, well, if I've come into your life, I should make it better. If I'm in your life, your life should be better. If I'm in a relationship with you, your life should be better. So if you can't tell me something that's improved, then what am I really doing? What value have I added to you? Right? So very much what he's saying. But then when I went into my next relationship, I went the whole opposite way, which is why I said I found it to be, when I look back on it, some of it was emotionally abusive, because silent treatment is part of emotional abuse. Causing distance between yourself and a person, some of it is emotional abuse. In that aspect. So I went the opposite side, which is I went into, I'm independent, I don't need you. Okay, so if you feel like you want to be here, you be here, but I don't need you. And I felt the need to keep on mentioning that I don't need you. Okay, so just to let you know, if you want to try anything, just I don't really care. But at the end of the day, I don't really need you. You're either here or not. I don't really mind. You know what I'm saying? And she kept on asking me, why do you keep saying that? I said, because it's the truth. I want to let you know, listen, like, at any moment, things might not work out, and I don't really need you. I don't, like, and what I was really trying to find a balance, but I went completely all the way the opposite way, just like he said, and that actually becomes emotionally abusive in that respect. So, you have to be honest about yourself, and I wasn't trying to be that way. I wasn't trying to necessarily go all that intense way, the other side, but the reality is, parts of those behaviors were. Now, obviously I had reasons for, but those reasons are not important. What's the reality is those actions came out. You're trying to find a balance. Yeah, you go the opposite way. You get dangerous.
Sorry.
yeah, exactly. So I couldn't find that my right porridge.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Until Marilyn entered my life. And then she was the one that kind of like fixed these bad habits of mine. It's like, it's okay for you to tell me I love you more than just, I don't know, once a month, right? And then I had to sit down and think like, wait, why the fuck am I doing that? So I do love her. I appreciate her. She's the one for me. She's the woman that I want to marry, and I'm going to marry, and I am married too. So why do I do this? And then you had to go back and like, oh, it's probably because of that time where, when you were younger, where you kind of like gushed out love and affection because you're trying to hold this person close to you, that you're afraid that if you do that, this person might leave and you're left with nothing.
It's fascinating about that because, are you familiar with attachment styles?
No.
So attachment styles it's a theory that people have these basic ways that are created from childhood and how they form relationships.
Emotional
with
avoidance.
There's anxiously attached people, in which that usually comes from like helicopter parents.
Oh, I do remember this. Our couple counselor told us about this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so there's anxious, then there's secure, and then there's avoidant. And so according to this Venn diagram, in some cases,
He's
you
avoidant.
and Muriel are a little avoidant
Yep.
because your circles are further apart. But in that mutuality of avoidance, you find balance with each other. Because if you were one anxious person, one avoidant person, that's when you have huge conflict, because you need your own separate life, you want your own separate space, becomes a trigger for me as an anxious person. Now I feel abandoned by you. So that's why it's interesting, because it sounds like you almost like edited your own attachment style as you went along.
And she's the anxious type. So you see how that doesn't help. You know what I mean? And so for her, And obviously she had to go through her own therapy and stuff like that, where she kind of had to find this stuff about herself too. And then she had to go into the whole thing of why she's like that. And it stems from her family and her relationship with her mom.
Dismissive.
And so,
yeah, thank you.
As we've continued to grow together, we've been getting better and better and better. We actually almost, before we moved in together in our last place, I was done with her. I was going to split with her. So we were engaged, but we weren't married. And there was a point in our relationship where it got really bad. And I looked at her and I was like, oh, you know what? If you left tomorrow, I think I'd be happier. And so it was like one of these moments where we had to look at each other and say, hey, at this very moment, I'm not good for you. You're not good for me.
That's a really great way to gauge the health of a relationship. I've never heard it put so like clearly before. You get to this place where you're like, yeah, if I didn't have to hang with you tomorrow, I think I'd have a better day.
Yeah, and it was weird because I literally said that while we were laying in bed. And then I looked over at her, and you know, you could, when you're with somebody, whether it's friends or relationship, you know when there's a weird stank in the air. You know what I mean? It's like, damn, something don't feel right. You know, like there's a cloud looming over us. That's why I just said it. And I was like, I have to say this because now I'm living in dishonesty. I can't do that. I can't wake up every morning, look at you and not feel something and share the same bed with you. Because at this point, we just might as well live separately. And so when we said that, she said, I feel the same.
Was that during the pandemic?
It was during the pandemic. And so, I mean, that's a whole other separate conversation too, especially when it comes to relationships, because remember, we only saw each other intermittently, especially because she had a job that worked outside. And now I saw her every day. So now what we liked and hated about each other was accelerated because we're in this small, tight space and I'm just looking at her stupid face every day. You know?
And she's looking at yours.
My stupid face like
every day.
She was like, you know, it's very funny how every time you open up a fucking cabinet, you just leave it open. I'm like, do I? And I'm like, yes, I do. But because you talk to me like that, I'm leaving it open on purpose. And we would just start doing shit to piss each other off. And after a while, we started seeing everything that we hated about each other. And we had to figure out, is this something that we could solve or is this something that is going to bother us for the rest of our lives?
Listen, pandemic really was doing a number on people because it asks a really good question, which is, if I have to spend more time with you, do I like you? God's reality is, do I actually like you? If I have to spend more time with you on a daily basis, do I actually like you? And the reality is, the more time you spend with somebody, the increased likelihood we're going to step on each other's toes, which means the increased likelihood we have to learn how to deal with one another and not be on top of one another. It's so difficult, you know, because you can be at work and in a team and you still feel that tension that you may have spending so much time with one another. So, you know, he describes a really potent thing. Pandemic took out so many relationships. Pandemic literally removed so many people from their relationships that they had more time to actually analyze, and there was no running away this time. They had to look at the person and be actually, do you know what? You aren't good for me. You know, a lot of families were ruined. The pandemic sped up what was already there for a lot of couples. I think the pandemic opened up the eyes of people that, you know what? We don't have the tools to deal with one another. And we were using work, you know, friends, social circles, events, hobbies to actually bridge the gap of what we're actually feeling. You know, so a lot of people, realized that they were out of their depth in their relationship and they had been glossing over some of the issues in this. And so pandemic just exposed that. That's what it did. It meant we had to be more closer to each other and actually, do I like you? I'm stuck in the house with you now. Do I actually really like you? That's the question. So there was a lot of that.
Certain parts of my life that are pillars. They're part of my foundation that will never, ever move. This stuff cannot be fucked with at all. Everything else is an issue, is a problem, is annoyance. We can work around it or whatever. One of them is religion. The other one is family. And the other one is, what's it called? Not codependency, but the opposite, but being able to function on my own.
Independence?
Yeah, independence. So I need these type of things. The thing that, the pillar thing that messed up was the family part. Because she had a lot of issues on her own with her own family, and not big stuff, but it's like personal trauma that she has to deal with. It was affecting our relationship. I'm somebody who believes in boundaries, right? And I was kind of harping on her. It's like, you got to set boundaries with your parents, specifically because when we have kids, they don't understand these boundaries. It bleeds over to me. And I think for me...
Oh, I understand. Because I was thinking about that. Like, these are your pillars. Why does her relationship with her family infringe on your pillars? Because you're thinking ahead. And you see her as your family and you see her family as an extension of yours.
For me...
What did I tell you about a man? A man who leads has foresight. He can already see ahead of himself. This ain't going... You're going to cause us issues in the future. And that's what I said. As somebody who's a great... when you when you're a man that's got leadership skills, you do see ahead of issues that are going to come. Hence why you deal with things the now, so that it gets the other side. You can say no. And so he can already see that the family was going to be an issue and cause trouble. And it's actually one of the things I always tell, I talk about, and we're going to talk about in future as well, that, in-laws, in-laws, I've seen it happen. It can destroy marriages, bro. It can destroy people and marriages. Do not let your in-laws destroy marriage. You need to create a boundary. You as an individual, whoever's family it is, you need to set the boundary. Like, no one else can do it for you. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you've got your own family and they are sticking their fingers and noses and all sorts into your relationship, you need to set the boundary. Your partner can't do that for you. And whatever boundaries they're breaking now, they're going to break more in future. Like I remember, when I talk to some of my past partners, I'll be like, listen, let's keep a rule here, none of our parents can just turn up at our house in future. We had some of these conversations. None of our parents can just turn up at our house. It's not possible. Yeah? The parents can't just turn up at our house. You should know that, right? Okay, when it comes to our kids, can they beat our kids? Or can they not? They should be able to work with that, If they can't respect that, then they don't need to be nothing. You know what I mean? Like, what you set for them. Okay, you know what? Our kids can't have sugar, so our grandparents shouldn't be giving them sugar. These are boundaries, stuff like this. Like, I'm just giving an example. And you've got to hold your own boundaries too. Like, hey, let's agree on this. When we have an argument, you can't go to your mum or your dad first without really talking it out with me. Not that you can't go to them, but not without talking it out with me first. We get a better idea. As well. So it's stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's crazy. And the thing is, like, again, you don't want someone's parents to ruin the relationship that you have. They have to respect those boundaries, and they only respect it when you uphold it. Uphold your end of the bargain by creating healthy boundaries. Make sure people adhere to them and honor them. And there are consequences when they don't do this. Hey, I'm not going to talk to you. I cannot talk to you at this moment then. If you can't respect my boundaries, I cannot allow you to talk to me. Yeah? It's very true as well. Very, very true, Dahlia. Very, very true. Absolutely true. Which is why we need to discuss these things 100%. You know what I mean? And look, just because of what I've seen, I'm not a fan. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of family members staying at the crib. Okay? I'm not a big fan of, family members being in my crib. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not a big fan. It tends not to end very well. Okay? It tends not to end very well. We don't need your family in the crib. Okay? They want to stay for a few days? Fantastic. Extended periods of time, unless we agree that they're going to become, in-house babysitter or something like that, blah, 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 I don't know. Yeah, we don't need them to be my house all day and your house all day. Baby, send them packing. Because they're going to cause so much stress. So, like, setting boundaries depends on what you like. How do you operate? How do they operate? It's all important conversations as well.
That was like, oh, this is something that is going to be a problem and it's shaking my foundation. So
that was a probable reason why you would have ended the relationship?
Yeah.
I am so sorry, everybody, and David, but I got to pop in right now to tell you about the sponsor of this episode, ZocDoc. We talked about them before, but let's do it again because it's so nice. We got to do it twice. ZocDoc, this Venn diagram with her family was too overlapped, wherein you felt like...
Oh, very overlapped. Super, super overlapped, right? So it was to the point where I felt like, not just her, just I was there too, but I addressed it way earlier. I addressed it in my 20s. So it's like, I don't like the idea that somebody else can control my emotions at free will. So it's like, let's say, and everybody has this with their parents. They meet up with their parents and they say something weird and it messes up your whole day. Well, that would transfer over to me and then I have to deal with those emotions. And I didn't like that. But, since, she talked about it too, where she would talk about how her relationship got better with her mother after therapy, right? And I think like that was already a hard thing too. So my stipulation to her was, hey, in February, I need you to try therapy, right? Because whatever I'm saying is not getting to you. And we're at a point where we're going to split. She goes, well, I want to do couples therapy first. I was like, no, you're not doing that. You need to try therapy first on your own because you need to trust the process. If you don't trust the process, therapy doesn't work. if you think that you know better than the person who's trying to advise you. So try it on your own, have your own experience with it, and then we'll go to couples counseling. And so
Okay, we need to pause at this point because let me just be real with you. Some of you mandem husbands, this is for you specifically because most of my clients are usually women. So I'm going to be honest with you. I have some men too, but I'm just going to say, mandem, I'm going to be real with you. Some of you need to do some separate counseling. Y'all only want to do couple counseling, but I need you to do some separate counseling. ASAP the frick Rocky. Okay? I'm going to need you to get into therapy. Some of you husbands, some of you fathers, some of you brothers, some of you cousins, I need you to do some separate therapy because when you get into couples therapy, it's about what the other person's done. And I don't need that. I need you to get into your separate therapy. Simple as. Right? Because some of you are using couples therapy as a dodge. Because in couples therapy, the person's gonna deal with what's immediately happening in front of them in terms of couples issues. But the reality is, having dealt with people solo, and this is a funny thing. I've dealt with more women who are in relationships come to me, and we start talking about them. Okay, all right. They start talking about their partner, and I'm like, no. You. We're dealing with you. I want to let you know that I appreciate your relationship, and you can come with those issues, but you're gonna realize that it's about you. So it's a solo thing. It has to be because you're contributing towards the relationship. Okay, you're contributing towards the downfall of the relationship, and so I need husbands, I need brothers, I need uncles, I need cousins, I need sons. If you're in a relationship with the opposite sex, or if you're in a same-sex relationship, whichever you call it as, you need to get into therapy first. Before you get into a couples one, how about you do your own first so that we can work on your blind spots? Just being real. You might be thinking it's them, but let's be real. Some of it's you. A lot of it's you. And I'm not talking about men now, I'm just talking about in general. A lot of times people come in there thinking it's them. And then when we start breaking down some of the stuff, like, oh, you didn't realize you had all those issues? You didn't realize that sometimes your behavior is triggering another person? You didn't realize that?
Gave her an ultimatum. I was like, if you want me to try again, then the one thing I need you to do is find a therapist in February. By the end of February, if you don't have a therapist or you haven't tried, by March 1st, there's going to be movers moving my stuff out. So that's just what it is. And so she tried it. She loved her therapist. She unlocked all this shit.
Some people, just by virtue of that suggestion, it's interesting too because you gave the open cupboards analogy, where something like that would trigger you to be like, "I'll keep all these fucking cupboards open." And so, interestingly, for you to communicate that so harshly and concretely in a way that could trigger someone's ego to be like, "Who do you think you are, giving me a deadline for when you?"
Yeah.
But she was receptive to it.
Yeah, but because we were at our wit's end, and she wanted to try, I didn't. So I was like, "Okay, cool. So I'm out. I'm already checked out, by the way. So if you're trying to mend this stuff, then yeah." I have one stipulation for me because it was our relationship was so bad at this point. Like
Listen, I want to say this as well. Please, ladies, if you're out there, you need to take this guy's advice. Some of you are in relationships like this. You need to create the ultimatum ASAP Rocky. Some of you know. I'm sorry for some of the mandem who are probably going to hate me after this. But ladies, some of you need to take this ultimatum. Husband, you got 4 months. Get it together, get into therapy, or be gone. And when you say you're gone, be gone. Don't be doing I'm gone and then doing I'm slowly inching. Be gone and be gone. Do you understand what I'm saying? Be gone and be gone. Do you get it? Don't waste time. Because some of you are literally on the wit's end. Okay? You need to be implementing the same ultimatum. Because you are outside the door already. You know what I mean? Let him know. Therapy. Find a therapist. 3 months. I want to see some changes. Or else I'm out. Mean it and do it. Get it done. You know what I mean? Look, I'm with you, Dorica. I don't really like ultimatums, but I think when you're at your breaking point, like he's describing, you're literally outside the door. It's your last, ditch thing. You're giving them that last opportunity. They can't sort themselves out. All right. Do you get me? Alright. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you gotta do it.
You've already been checked out for months. So at this point, it's like, cool, there's an ultimatum now because you don't believe in something that I truly believe in, which is therapy, right? Because I've been going through counseling and therapy since I was a little kid because I had anger issues. So I had to go through anger management since I was like 8 years old.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So I never had this thing, oh, therapy's weird. Like I had it my whole life.
Yes.
You know, I just didn't know it was therapy, you know? And that was therapy was the reason why I got to mend my relationship with my dad. So I like therapy. I think it's dope. So I never had this weird, you know, feeling about it because I was forced into it as a kid because I needed it, you know? But the leveling up that I had with Mariel was even more intense because now I started to realize that committed relationships are less about I find out more about me than I do about her. You know, specifically when it comes to bad habits that I thought were habits that were perfectly fine, but it's not. I told you I grew up in a very violent household. Well, my household, we would break shit. We would punch balls, smash things. We love each other. We would never hit each other, but we would act violently. And in my mind, because in my world, that thing's acceptable. It doesn't mean that it's generally accepted. We had this little eye cream that she had, this Korean eye cream. She got me so mad. I took this cute little thing and I fucking slammed it on the floor and the eye cream splattered, right? In my mind, I'm like, that's just eye cream. She's fine. She got scared. She started tearing up. I'm like, fuck you scared for? I ain't gonna hit you. That's in my mind, right? But she goes, you broke something in front of me. I'm like, I know. 1.5 ounce eye cream. There's nothing wrong here. But seeing her scared of me and crying made me think, oh shit, I did something violent in front of her, right? From that point on, I don't do that anymore. And that's something I learned about myself. This is not an acceptable behavior. I didn't know that. It was acceptable in my household. We would break shit all the time. And then after that, we would just have to eat dinner. But for her.
Now, I would be honest with you. He lucky. You know, he lucky because you do that one time, I'm out. Okay? I'm not waiting to see if you escalate. I'm out. I'm out. If you do that to me, I'm out. Okay? I'm out. Okay? You do that to me, I'm out. You smash a cream in front of me, you smash a plate in front of me, I'm out. Okay? There is no reason for you to be smashing anything in my presence. If you're angry, and of course, like he said, he didn't know it was wrong, whatever, and he never hit her, thank God. But I'm just saying, any of that kind of stuff, for me, I'm out. I can't do it. You know, I can't do it. I'm sorry. Yeah, I just can't do it myself. But I respect the fact that he shared that as well, because I think it's very important as well. So, old girl, you know, he learned in that moment. He doesn't smash anything now. That's it. But yeah, no for me. That's a big no for me. Cannot be me. Cannot be me. Sorry.
It's not okay. So like, I just kept on finding all this new stuff. I'm like, oh, this is probably not that good. Once again, for a Korean man, especially because we're so stubborn, it was very hard for me to say like, oh shit, I'm wrong. And like verbally to her.
Well, you talked about going back to therapy. What
That's
point
real.
did you start re-engaging?
I think more frequently was probably when I was probably like 4 years ago, right? And it was all because of our personal relationship. And the thing that I had to, my therapist that kind of helped me through this whole situation, and you know, especially for me to just confront her about certain things, was like,
So you went back to therapy because of your relationship with Mariel?
because I thought that everything that was going wrong in our relationship was my fault. Because I'm the one with violent issues. I'm the one with all this other stuff, you know? And so at a certain point, my therapist was like, you know, you beat yourself up a lot. You know, it's like, what about her? What can she do better? I'm like, I don't know. Is it a her thing or is it a me thing? And then after a while, I got to this point, I remember I told her, I was like, hey, you know what? I didn't do anything wrong. It's you, right? And it felt good to say that because she didn't know throughout that whole time I was going through therapy, trying to figure out how can I do better? How can I do better? How can I do better? Because I'm so used to messing up. And then I got to the point, I'm like, no, I'm pretty fucking good, you know?
Yeah, because you've been putting the work in.
Yeah, I was like, now it's
Was
your
it
turn.
frustrating putting in the work and having a partner who was not like equally inspired?
Yo, that's so wild to me, man. I definitely understand where he's coming from when you talk about obviously always blaming yourself. You're constantly in a place where you're, you know, consistently in a place where, you know, you're always in the wrong, or at least you always put yourself in a place where you can do better. That leaves you open, though, to be vulnerable, because there are people that take advantage of this who know that you're going to always self-reflect and put yourself in it. And that's why as I told you, that's why I ended up in a situation where I felt like I was being abused, because I was always putting myself in a situation. I'm like, okay, well, it doesn't matter what they did. What did I do wrong? You know? And after a while, if you don't know how to set good boundaries and you don't know when and where to this is what we see with Bin and Morgan. Ben is describing the very thing what he's going through, which is the constant ability to be able to take accountability. But what it does do, if you take too much accountability, it robs the other person of being able to say, actually, there's some things I'm doing wrong. And the reason why you do that is because you're almost trying to be perfect in a sense, so that you don't get shouted at, so you don't get cussed out, so you don't get disrespected, so you don't feel like you're a failure. But the reality is you should be letting another person know aspects of their behavior is wrong. And you're scared to do that because you don't want them to feel bad, because that's how you'd feel if you were checked. Let's keep it a buck and let's keep it 100. So, yeah, definitely some real deep things he's saying.
Desire to engage in the work?
Yeah. And, you know, she was trying to engage the work in her own way, right? But it wasn't working, you know. And clearly what I was doing wasn't working, you know, trying to beat myself up for stuff. And, you know, and I want to encapsulate it, too. She was always trying, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes we need to try things in a different perspective, because we're just doing stuff, the same thing over and over, and it's not working. We think that it's going to work. It's not going to work. Sometimes you need that other outside perspective, and that's where fucking therapy comes in.
Well, that's like when you get a piece of furniture from IKEA that you want to build yourself, and you're like, I'm not using the manual. And then after 4 hours, you're like, where's the manual again?
Yeah, you know, why are these drawers upside down?
And then you're like, oh, it is true. I mean, I've talked about that with closure. People are like, you know, well, I just sought closure within myself. I was like, kinda.
Yeah.
But like to fully understand a situation and how you can improve and what you did within it, that was a catalyst, if not the cause of the breakdown. You kind of need somebody else to be like, here's where you fucked up. You know?
And one of my, like this year, I wouldn't say this year, but maybe since pandemic, one of the things I figured out about myself was that I fucking hate people who don't have any sense of personal responsibility. I hate it. I can't stand it. You know, like I don't like people who sit around and they go, oh, everybody's at fault but me, right? And those people in the last 2-3 years have been completely cut out, because I didn't realize that their negative behavior in that type of sense was dragging me down.
Do you think the people who don't go to therapy have a little bit of that in them?
For sure. And, you know, therapy can be done in many different ways, right? But I do personally suggest like professional therapy, because they just have tools. They know how to like
I agree.
Put a little thing on it to help you encapsulate what you're feeling.
Because that's kind of the basis of not going to therapy, is like, I don't think there's anything wrong with me, right? Like, so it's like, well, I think I'm good, so I don't need to go. Wherein there's something wrong with everybody.
Oh, 100%. You know what I mean? And when you're allowed to kind of really frame out this issue that you have, and there's like, I don't know, terms for it or like solutions for it, it really just makes you feel normal.
How did it practically make you a better lover in your partnership?
I love what he said there as well, because I think sometimes what happens is, you know, I think sometimes what happens, people that haven't, I won't even say people haven't even gone to therapy, but there needs to be a level of self-awareness. There needs to be a level of self-awareness. And I think a lot of times therapy for a lot of people is the ability now to have that self-awareness. It's someone else addressing their issues. You know, I think, you know, that in this situation, that therapy, what it does for a lot of people is that it brings people into a space where it's like, okay, look, you need to look at you now, and why you do what you do, and why you feel the way you feel, and why you move the way you do. And I think a therapy, even if the person's not self-aware all the way, therapy does that. It brings that person into a space where they have to start thinking about not only the other person, not only other person's doing what they're doing, what are you contributing towards the downfall of the situation, you know? So I definitely hear that as well.
It helped me specifically. Okay. There's this thing about me where, because in my household, we don't say, you hurt my feelings. I couldn't say that for the life of me until like last year. So when our couples counseling, she goes, David, I want you to say to your fiance that she hurt your feelings. I was like, no, you fucking nuts. You hurt my feelings. I can't say that shit. But the reason why is because I would say you're hurting my feelings in the most disastrous type of ways.
Yep.
You know, why are you doing that? Stop doing that shit. It's dumb. You know, not like that, but that's how it would be, right?
Yeah.
Versus I could just say, when you do that, you hurt my feelings, because that's how she understands it.
You see, I'm not a therapist, but what have I been telling you? Yeah, what I've been telling you. Saying that it hurt. Listen, you're hurting me. It's language that is universal, my niggas. You know what I mean? I shouldn't say my niggas, but anyway, you know what I mean. You know, it's universal language. It's what people understand. Hey, when you do this, you're actually hurting me. Because a lot of times people don't realize they're hurting you. You know what I mean? You might say, hey, stop it. And all they're seeing is something else, or what they're hearing is something else. But the reality is, saying you hurt me, or, you know, by you doing this and attaching, hey, this doesn't feel good. You know what I mean? When you do this, I feel like, you know, I'm being hurt in this moment. I feel like I'm being embarrassed in this moment. You know, like, so it's real language for real situations that actually begin to bring a vulnerability to the situation. And a lot of times people don't want to do it because they don't want to sound vulnerable. They know the words I'm hurting or this hurts, but because they're scared that it will show a vulnerability and be embarrassing for them to admit that they're actually been hurt by something, that then they climb up and they choose other words to describe how they're actually feeling. And actually that doesn't solve the actual issue. So what he's describing is how, for him, in his situation, how he had to describe it. And at first, he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to do it. All right? He didn't want to do it.
I'm telling you, when I would say it, the first time I ever said it without our couples counselor, it felt like somebody was ripping out my teeth. It was killing me. I was like, you hurt? Like, I'm about to faint, my feelings. But she would do stuff where she goes, see, it's not that hard. I'm like,
and you're like, you make it much harder. You're fucking that crazy.
I was like, you're making it worse. She's so fucking, she makes me laugh. And that's why I love her the most, because she genuinely makes me laugh super hard. She's the type of person, like, if I'm watching a movie, I cry in movies, right? But I don't need you to point out I'm crying. Let me cry. Like, we'll be in a theater, like, straight up. Bunch of people around, I'm watching, I'm bawling, and then she'll look at me and she goes, are you crying? I'm like, bitch.
Yo, we said about this last time. Women need to stop this. Stop it. Don't be doing this thing where if we're crying, are you crying? Don't be asking those questions, sir. Tell them.
If you don't shut the fuck up, what are you doing? You don't have to say that. I know I'm crying. And she goes, it's okay. She's rubbing my back in this theater full of people.
We don't need you to do that.
I don't have this thing of like certain like masculinity type of shit, but you embarrassing me.
Yeah.
Like, you need to cut the shit out. Let me just cry, all right? But that's what it feels like when I have to say you hurt my feelings, because I was never either allowed to say it or I never even felt like it was necessary. I would just try to say, well, this is a problem you need to fix, versus just saying, hey, you hurt my feelings? I don't like it when you do that. And then she would just never do it again. It was just such an easy solution. So
honestly, it's such an easy solution. Such an easy solution, honestly. But yeah, please don't, like, guys, when we're breaking down in tears, it's not the time to now, like, yo, watching and I'm talking about specifically, he's talking about specific situation. We're watching a movie and then literally we're watching a movie and then you see me crying, babe, oh, hey, leave me alone. Let me watch my movie and let me cry. Okay, this is why I went to watch Wakanda the other day and I didn't want no one to be around me. I didn't want no niggas. I didn't want no ladies. Sorry, I keep saying niggas. I didn't want one of my goons. I didn't want no ladies, okay? Let me watch this film and cry in peace, because I was crying at several points in that film, okay? All right? Now, it was kind of hard to cry at one point because I was eating my noodles and eating my Korean-styled fried rice and trying to figure out how to put the coleslaw in the pot in darkness without me spilling it. So I was missing parts of the film and I couldn't really connect to that moment. So I didn't even cry the way I wanted to cry. So, it's when I literally, for one moment, had to put the coleslaw down, put the fried rice down, and just look at the screen. And then when I did, I literally saw Chadwick Boseman on the when it pans to him and the mural, and they're playing the little drums in the mural. That's when I said, when you do that, that's the boss man cry when you're a bro. You don't want to know. I think I said, it's too early. It's too early. Not Chadwick. And I went back to eat my fried rice again. Okay. So at that point in time, I realized it was they had me in Chad moments, bro. I won't lie to you. I don't know if it was my noodles. I don't know if I was because eating my fried rice at the time. But that opening scene in Black Panther didn't really get me. I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to say what happened. I don't want to spoil it for nobody. But the opening scene where we see Shuri, it didn't really get me. I'll be honest with you. Yeah, it didn't really get me. It wasn't that scene that got me. Okay? That wasn't the scene that it got me at. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I was moved at another part, I don't know. Listen, AW, listen, let me tell you something. At that cinema, I had fried rice. I had a coleslaw. Okay, I had chicken with it. Okay, and then I had my popcorn, sweet and salted. I had we have these chocolate fingers, basically like a biscuit covered in chocolate. I had that. Then I had 2 cookies, American baked cookies, and then I had an apple juice, which had then also I mixed that with the strawberry guava juice I had, mixed that all in to get into there as well. You know what I mean? And I made sure that I really enjoyed. You know what I mean? And that was in the first 20-30 minutes. Okay, they don't have fried rice in the cinemas, guys. I brought that in. Okay, I brought that in. Okay, I brought that in. Okay, all right. I brought that in. I had a bag. I had my backpack. I put the food in my bag. I unleashed the backpack. I had zzz, and as I opened it, shh, you know what I'm saying? I grabbed up my fried rice. Had that with it was awkward. I had the fried rice thing, and then I had the coleslaw. I'm trying to open that and put it. Oh, it was interesting. So, yeah, man, you know what I mean. So I had to make sure I piled out. But anyway, back to what he was saying, because I've gone off the topic of what he was saying. The tears aspect. There's time and season for when you know what I'm saying. Like if I'm going through something, then yeah, if I'm going through something, then a whole yeah, I definitely hear that. You know what I mean? I usually have fried chicken when I go to cinemas, guys. Just want to be honest with you. I usually have fried chicken and chips when I'm in the movies. That's my pig out day. I ain't gonna lie to you. That's my don't talk to me for 3 hours. I want to watch my movie in peace day. I need to enjoy myself when I go cinema. That's my time that I release. I might have to go watch Black Panther again. I don't know. I don't know. I don't enjoy it that much. I'll be honest with you, so I can't even watch it again. But yeah. Baby, I had a backpack on. They ain't gonna say nothing. Okay, all right. So, yeah. So anyway, back to what I was saying. So what was he saying? Let's just go back to what he was saying. Sorry, I distracted everybody from the class.
What are you doing? You don't have to say it out. I know I'm crying. And she goes, it's okay. She's rubbing my bag in this theater full of people. I'm like, listen, I don't have this thing of like certain like masculinity type of shit, but you embarrassing me. Yeah. Like you need to cut this shit out. Let me just cry. All right. But that's what it feels like when I have to say you hurt my feelings, because I was never either allowed to say it or I never even felt like it was necessary. I would just try to say, well, this is a problem you need to fix, versus just saying, hey, you hurt my feelings? I don't like it when you do that. And then she would just never do it again. It was just such an easy solution. So being able to kind of communicate my feelings in a way that she understood, even though it would make me feel weird, would solve literally 90% of our issues.
Yeah.
Because there's always a communication breakdown. It's not because she's a bad person, I'm a bad person. We're just speaking 2 different languages. Like, how do I get to that medium point where we can understand what the hell we're talking about?
Yeah. So was it safe to say that if it wasn't for therapy, you guys wouldn't have gotten married?
100%. 100%. I mean, that's why I don't push it per se, but I have no problem talking about it, right? Just because y'all motherfuckers need some therapy, man. Like, just try it out. Let me tell you something. You know when you go to a bar and you kick it with your homies who are all like-minded and they just gas you up? That's not therapy. Complaining is therapeutic. Those are 2 different things. Very different things, And I'm trying to get people to understand. They go, I have therapy. I kicked it with my homie. Those dumb motherfuckers don't know shit. They don't know shit, all right? They don't know anything because you only tell them a version of your story that you want them to like you.
Yes.
When you're with the therapist, you say everything, the good, the bad, the evil, whatever. And then it's weird. Like, you almost feel like, oh, I'm not being judged. I'm going to say some fucked up shit, right? And then you could say it. And then you feel better. And that's how you kind of lay it all out there, and then you pick up the pieces.
And then you realize, I ain't as good as I thought I was. Okay, I ain't as good as I thought I was. You say it twice, you think you're good. That's what you're not as good as you thought you were. So he's absolutely right. That's what therapy will do to you. It will allow you to access parts of your mind. There's some thoughts in my mind. There's some thoughts in my mind that I thought about, and I said, wow, if that ever gets out, they will judge me differently. Okay, so yes, there's some thoughts I would never necessarily say out loud. Absolutely, he's absolutely right. Because if it came out, whew. Yeah, it'd be a problem, definitely be a problem. There's some thoughts that, are reserved for a therapist. And the thing is, they're not going to judge you because at the end of the day, it's a safe space. But it's one of those thoughts that you can't even tell your friends that, be mad. So it's a madness out here because, But listen, I'm going to leave it there because we reached our hour point and I don't want to go any further than that. But listen, I've enjoyed the conversation. I think Wednesday we'll do the Black Panther spoiler live. So if you haven't watched it, do not tune in on Wednesday night. Okay, Wednesday night we will do the Black Panther conversation. But we'll do the Black Panther conversation, spoilers and all. Come and say your piece, how you felt about the show, because let me tell you something, there's a lot of stuff in that Black Panther stuff that I want to talk about. One of the things is also how they made Wakanda the story as well. It made me think. I'll be honest with you, I don't think it was that great. I'm gonna tell you straight. I don't think he was that great. I'll be honest with you, Black Panther. Okay? But I was there for the culture. I think the first one was much better. Second one just felt a little bit too... Yeah, I didn't see, Yeah. Wasn't for me. It wasn't my greatest film. But I want to talk about it. I want to talk about it on Wednesday. Okay? Today is Tuesday. Okay? All right, today's Tuesday, guys. Today we have Intimacy Without Sex later on. That's at 9 p.m. EST time, okay? All right? Today we have Intimacy Without Sex. That's the open panel. That's for that, okay? But yes, the Black Panther stuff, we're going to talk about that because, yeah, it was interesting. I just felt like there could have been more for us, and I felt like there should have been. If you're not going to give me action, you need to give me succinct, beautiful, succulent storylines. You know what I'm saying? Okay? If you're gonna give me not much action, I need to see detailed, emotional, drawing me in kind of storylines. And I don't know if it delivered that personally, but I enjoyed it. I just expected a bit more. You know what I mean? I expected a bit more. I think films need to go back to basics. But anyway, like, share, subscribe, click on the bell button. Listen, grab therapy if you need it. You know what I'm saying? Watch this back and just tap in some points that were made as well, because I think it was a really great points that were made. Like, share, subscribe, click on that bell button for notification of uploads. We appreciate you guys.